It's been over 10 years since the gates appeared. Dimensional portals connecting different worlds to the...
Even he had to admit that he looked good, so no wonder the nurses agreed. I guess it's all because of these quests. Jinwoo brought up the stat screen. Name: Jinwoo Sung, Jub none, HP 100, Fatigue 0, Level 1, Title none, MP 10, Stats Strength Stamina 16, Agility 10, Intelligence 10, Perception 10. Available ability points 0. Skills: Passive skill, Unknown level, Max, Willpower, LV1, Active skill, Dash level 1. His strength attribute was already at 16. He didn't know how effective raising the other stats would be, so he'd concentrated all his ability points into raising his strength for the time being, since that would be the most helpful attribute when fighting magic beasts. But this couldn't have happened to my body after only a couple of days just by exercising. There could be only one reason. As his strength increased, his muscles were changing in response for optimum effect. He couldn't think of any other explanation. He'd been slightly worried about investing his points solely in strength, but after seeing the results, he'd been very satisfied, and his worries had faded. Still, I do think I'm attracting too much attention. The nurses were talking about Jinwoo more and more. Since their job required knowledge of human anatomy, it was inevitable that they would quickly notice the change. Because of his keen hearing, Jinwoo was very aware of this. Looks like it's time to get out of here. All this attention wasn't good. He not only felt burdened by it, but he wanted to avoid anyone else finding out about the system. There was no point stirring something up for no reason. He wanted to upgrade his ability level in peace without anyone knowing. Getting discharged shouldn't be a problem. Luckily, all the test results had come back normal. He could leave at any time. Heck, the association in the hospital seemed to be hoping he'd leave soon. They probably didn't want to spend too much money on an E-rank hunter. It was said that the government paid for S-rank hunters' hospital bills as one of their many benefits, but Jinwoo lived in a completely different world from them. He decided it'd be a good call to leave the hospital soon. He wanted to check on something anyway. Where did I put it? He riffled through his pockets and took something out. It was a shiny gold key. It had a simplistic design and could easily be mistaken for a trinket. He gazed at it for a long while before shoving it back into his pocket. As he was going through discharge paperwork, a young nurse came flying up to him. "Huff, Huff, are you leaving, Jinwoo?" "What? Oh yes." It was Yura Choi, the nurse in charge of Jinwoo. She looked disappointed that he was leaving. He didn't understand her reaction. He wondered if he had done something wrong, but nothing came to mind. She hesitated a little before taking out a notepad. "May I have your number?" "My number?" "Yes, if that's okay with you." Maybe they were planning to send him more test results? He took the notepad from her, but that's all she had for him. Yura's face flushed as Jinwoo blinked at her. What's wrong?" I don't have a pen." "Oh, just a minute, please." In her haste, she hadn't thought to bring a pen. She looked around, all flustered. "Oh, wait a minute. If it's a pen..." The next second, he was holding a pen. It had instantly appeared in his hand as soon as he recalled the ballpoint pen in his inventory. Anything he put in his inventory could be put back in or taken out with a mere thought. The inventory really was a convenient feature. Once he confirmed that it really was the pen in his hand, he called to Yura. "I realized I already had a pen." "Oh, really? Whew, I'm glad." She placed her hand on her chest and gave a sigh of relief. Jinwoo smiled as he wrote out his phone number. It was always like this. An opportunity to use items from mystery boxes tended to come up shortly after obtaining them. It rained the day after he received a raincoat, and he'd gotten a glass cup the day before the water cooler ran out of paper cups. Sometimes he'd get worthless things like the bandage, but most of the items had their uses. Here, Yura happily took the notepad back from Jinwoo. She gave him a bow. "I'm looking forward to it." "Oh, I'm looking forward to it too." With that, Yura rushed off somewhere. He cocked his head as he watched her hurry away. But looking forward to what? In any case, it was nice to see that she was as polite as she was cute. With that in mind, Jinwoo left the hospital with a spring in his step, feeling like a weight had been lifted off his shoulders. Jinwoo's first stop was the Hunters Association headquarters in Guruguru, Seoul. Hunter-issue smartphones used specialized technology, so Jinwoo had to put in a request directly with the association. The employee checked their monitor and then informed him, "It'll take 2 weeks to get your phone." "Excuse me, it takes that long?" Jinwoo's eyes went wide. His old phone had been totaled while he was being chased by the gigantic statue. To think it'd take 2 weeks for a new one. If you need a phone right away, you can rent one temporarily for 50,000 won. Forget buying, simply renting a phone costs as much as 50,000 won. It was too expensive for him considering his financial situation. "No one ever calls me anyway." The association would contact his house directly if they couldn't reach him by phone, so there was no reason to waste money on a rental. Jinwoo shook his head. "I'll just wait for the new one." "Understood. We'll send your new phone to your house as soon as it is available." "Thank you." Jinwoo got up. He was now finished with his errands. He'd already diligently completed his daily quest, and signing up for a new phone had gone faster than he'd expected. He fished the gold key from his pocket after exiting the association building. "I guess it's time to figure this out." The key's info screen popped up in green writing. Item, dungeon key, acquisition difficulty, E, category, key, description. A key that will take you to an instance dungeon. It can be used at exit 3 of the Hapjeong subway station. The key had come from a mystery box he'd received after finishing a daily quest. At first, he dismissed it, but when he saw the display indicating the level of difficulty to acquire it, he figured it couldn't be a regular key. This had been the deciding factor for leaving the hospital. A key to an instance dungeon. Instance or not, a dungeon was a dungeon. Jinwoo had many painful memories related to dungeons. Once he'd participated in an E-rank raid and was hurt so badly that he'd ended up hospitalized for a week. At least he'd made it out alive thanks to his colleagues. If he used the key to go to a dungeon, he'd have to do it alone. After much thought, he came to a decision. It shouldn't be a problem if I take a quick peek. He could run away if it came to it. Since he was jogging 10 kilometers daily these days, he was confident in his ability to get away, at least. Jinwoo was mistaken. Knock, knock. Where did this wall come from? He knocked on the invisible wall and yelled at passersby, but that was all in vain. People kept going their own busy ways. Sometimes they approached exit 3 to enter Hapjeong Station, but they vanished from his view once they reached the invisible wall. It was as if he were in a different dimension. When Jinwoo tried to force his way out, he received another message. Ping, you cannot leave the dungeon. You must either kill the boss or use a teleportation stone. He'd been getting the same message for a while now. The dungeon's key had disappeared as soon as he stepped through exit 3. Realizing something was wrong, he'd turned back only to find the entrance was already blocked. He had been expecting there to be a gate or a secret door somewhere near exit 3, but that clearly wasn't the case. To make matters worse, unlike a typical dungeon, it was impossible to leave of his own accord. This isn't a normal dungeon. Jinwoo sighed and turned to get his bearings. The subway station had transformed into a jungle. Vines covered the walls, and the stench of a rotting corpse hung in the air. He could hear some animal howling in the distance every so often. It wasn't that there was a dungeon near exit 3 of Hapjeong Station. The station itself was the dungeon. Jinwoo took the steel sword out of his inventory. Ping. Item. Kim Sangshik steel sword. Attack power +10. The exit was blocked, and he had no way to contact the outside world. His only option was to go forward. Jinwoo swallowed nervously and slowly descended the stairs. He quietly looked around but sensed nothing amiss. He held his breath as he assessed his surroundings, but he couldn't sense anything. Still, it would be unwise for him to let his guard down. Even among low-rank magic beasts, many of them had ways of masking their presence. Or rather, it'd probably be more accurate to say that because their ranks were low, they had to mask their presence in order to pull off surprise attacks. Past the washrooms and further in the station were the subway shops. The old run-down stores reminded Jinwoo of abandoned buildings. Under the dim fluorescent lighting, the abandoned stores and corridors with absolutely no sign of life gave him the creeps. Some of the lights flickered as if they were about to go out. As he walked down a corridor with weeds pushing out between the broken floor tiles, Jinwoo felt an uneasy chill. Everything was deadly quiet, but he sensed he was being watched. And then there was the smell. It was the intense stench of a rotting dead animal infested with flies. It was a scent familiar to Jinwoo since he frequented dungeons. His smell. It's an animal type. Jinwoo couldn't feel its presence anywhere. It was almost like a predator, hiding and lying in wait for its prey. It's waiting for an opening, huh? Then Jinwoo had to give it one. He purposefully turned around, exposing his back, and slowly started walking the way he'd come. Animals attack when an opponent shows their back. Animal-type magic beasts aren't much different. Jinwoo had taken 3 steps when, crash! Something blasted through the display window of a clothing store at the end of the corridor. It landed on the floor and immediately jumped for Jinwoo's neck. Grar! The beast roared. Prepared for the attack, Jinwoo swung his sword around in a wide arc as soon as he heard the noise. It was like a reflex. The sharp blade sliced through the creature's jaw. Monster tumbled to the floor with a pained squeal. It was a huge wolf with bright red fur. Its snout had been severed, and the monster was writhing on the floor in pain. When Jinwoo inspected it, he noticed its name floated above its head like the centipede in the penalty zone. Steel-fanged Lycan. Unlike last time, the writing was in white and not red. No time to waste. This was his chance. While the wounded monster couldn't get up, Jinwoo leaped into action. He ran at the creature and swung his sword down, lopping off its head. The Lycan gave a howl of pain as it died. You have defeated a steel-fanged Lycan. A new display read. Yes! Jinwoo exclaimed. But his celebration was cut short. 2 more Lycans that had been hiding behind display windows now emerged. Looked like it had friends. Jinwoo's eyes went wide. Grrr! They bared their fangs and raced toward him. Jinwoo grimaced. In his excitement, he'd struck his sword down with too much force, and it was now embedded deep in the floor. It must have gotten caught on something, as Jinwoo couldn't pull it out. It stuck. One of the Lycans leaped at his face. Oh no! He ducked. His attacker sailed over his head and smacked its head on the ground, unable to slow its momentum. The stone floor cracked as its fangs pierced it. Tiho's teeth aren't just for show. There was no time to be impressed, though. The other Lycan was running straight at him. It didn't look like he'd be able to free the sword in time. Damn it. Jinwoo gave up on the sword and instead swung his fist at the Lycan flying toward him. Whoosh! The sound his fist made as it snapped forward wasn't normal. Thwack! The Lycan's head exploded with one punch. The headless body skidded out from where it hit the ceiling and then fell to the ground hard. Jinwoo stared at his fist, dumbfounded. That level of monstrous strength was completely unexpected. Having witnessed this, the Lycan he dodged earlier started backing away with its tail between its legs. Huh. Was this from using all those points on his strength attribute? Even as the headless Lycan's leg stopped twitching, Jinwoo still could not pick his own jaw off the floor. Then came that familiar notification bell. Ping. You have defeated a steel-fanged Lycan. You have leveled up. I leveled up. Wondering if he'd misheard something, Jinwoo hurriedly brought up his stat screen. His level really had gone up, and it looked like leveling up meant 1 point was added to each of his stats. That meant rewards from quests weren't the only way to upgrade his abilities. He could increase them by leveling up as well. I can't believe it. The impossible had been confirmed to be possible right before his eyes. His heart started racing in excitement. On top of that, I get more ability points by leveling up. Completing a quest gave him 3 ability points. Leveling up gave him 5. While he didn't particularly care for not having the option to personally distribute the points, leveling up seemed to be a better way to increase his stats. Plus, quests were currently limited to 1 per day, but there was a higher chance that there was no limit for leveling up. My level increased just by defeating 2 of these creatures. This was how it worked in video games. People usually leveled up faster in earlier stages. Jinwoo was currently level 2. It was safe to assume he was at the bottom, but he wasn't an ordinary, low-level player. I'm overpowered. The unexpected destructive power of his punch proved his theory. Even though my strength stat is higher than what I started with, I'm more than 3 times stronger. Jinwoo had started with a strength stat of 10, strength at 10 versus strength at 30. The number had tripled, but the power he demonstrated was much more than 3 times his starting point. Maybe his power was increasing exponentially as his stats went up. That would explain this destructive power. His movements had gotten faster as well. Before, he wouldn't have been able to dodge the lichen that had come barreling at him so easily, nor would his punch have made that whistling sound. Then again, it makes sense that my speed would go up when strength increases. Raising his strength stat developed his muscles, which in turn raised both his power and speed. The battle with the lichens had demonstrated this. But then what would change if he raised his agility stat? He was dying to find out, but there was no way of doing so now. To accomplish it, he'd have to increase the stat. But he felt it was a waste to use the ability points received from quests on agility. Why squander resources there when raising strength increased both his power and speed in one go? That left only one other way. I need to level up as quickly as possible. He had to in order to increase agility. Every journey begins with the first step. He'd see a difference someday, as long as he kept compounding it by 1. Jinwoo finally pulled the sword out of the ground. Should I get going then? There was one more lichen left to kill. Where to go? The lichen that had been there not too long ago had disappeared. Jinwoo searched thoroughly nearby, but couldn't find a trace of it. It had probably escaped while Jinwoo was distracted by his stat screen. Thinking back, its tail had been down, and had been eyeing him for a chance to flee. Kisk. He pursed his lips in disappointment at the thought of losing a chance at gaining experience points. He was about to move on when it occurred to him. Do these things not have essence stones? He abruptly stopped. Magic beasts found in gates had at least one essence stone in their body, if not several. If you were lucky, you might also get a rune stone from one. Both rune stones, which held hidden skills that hunters could learn, and essence stones, which had a variety of uses, could fetch a high price. It wouldn't be wrong to say that hunters went on raids not just for the basic pay from the association, but also to harvest essence stones. Jinwoo was no different. He was disappointed to find no such items despite his success today. Just in case, he cut open the dead lichen's stomach, but it was a waste of time. These things were totally different from the magic beasts he knew. He'd been in many dungeons in his time, but had never seen a magic beast that resembled a wolf. Jinwoo shook his hand clean as he stood up. Something shiny in the lichen's mouth caught his attention. He forced its jaw open. One of its teeth was shining. When Jinwoo extended his hand toward it, a message popped up. You have discovered item, Lichen Fang. Would you like to acquire it? Acquire. Item Lichen Fang, a lichen's large sharp fang. It can be placed in the inventory or sold in the shop. Jinwoo blinked at the fang in his hand. There's a shop? This system really wasn't user-friendly. A user had to figure things out on their own as they experienced different scenarios. The worst offender had been the penalty quest, where he'd almost been killed with absolutely no explanation. He angrily gnashed his teeth at the memory as he summoned the shop. He sort of expected a store with a large sign that said shop run by an NPC to appear out of thin air. All that popped up, though, was a hologram screen with green writing, similar to the other messages. There were 2 words, buy and sell. It was quite a simple setup. Jinwoo chose to buy. He had no money, but he was curious about the shop's inventory. Alas, the system was very strict. You cannot buy anything at your level. He was used to being treated like dirt when it came to establishments that required payment. Yeah. He turned his attention to selling. Would you like to sell item, Lichen Fang? Sure, he stated. His inventory screen appeared with the sound of jingling coins. All the way at the bottom of the inventory, the space labeled gold had the number 20 written inside. It had been blank yesterday. 20 gold. It wasn't actual money he could use in real life, and he couldn't buy anything in the shop yet, so he couldn't really grasp how much 20 gold was worth. I guess it'd be worth as much as something from an E-rank dungeon? While an instance dungeon wasn't the same as an actual dungeon, it had to be about the same level. Jinwoo figured it'd be better to be safe than sorry and went to retrieve the other Lycan's fang, but then face-palmed when he realized something. I crushed its head. His shoulders slumped as he changed direction. The lost 20 gold weighed heavily on Jinwoo's mind, even if he wasn't sure how much they'd be worth, but he couldn't justify wasting time looking for a fang that could be anywhere in this darkness. His disappointment quickly dissipated when he turned around. The Lycan he thought had run away had come back with reinforcements. A delighted smile bloomed on Jinwoo's face. There appeared to be at least 20 of them. Eureka! Was this the right time to use that word? Well, whatever. It was definitely used when expressing happiness. He gripped his sword tightly. I'll beat every last one of you to a pulp and leave only your fangs. The Lycans flinched in fear at the murderous glint in the eyes of this man who was hungry for cash. Then Jinwoo leaped toward them. You have leveled up. You have leveled up. You have leveled up. Jinwoo's level shot up quickly as he'd expected. He'd already reached level 7 after scouring the first floor and exterminating all the Lycans. He'd jumped up 5 levels. An odd message popped up after he killed the last Lycan, which was trying to run away with its tail between its legs. Ping, you have acquired title Wolf Assassin. Description, a title given to those skilled at hunting wolves. When battling an animal-type monster, all abilities will increase by 40%. An ability boost when fighting against animal-type monsters. It was limited to only a certain type of target, but a 40% boost would still be a big help. Will this apply to animal types in regular dungeons too? If that was true, he'd be able to defeat the magic beast in a raid with just a snap of his fingers. In any case, Jinwoo had managed to gather quite a haul. 34 Lycan fangs, 2 dull daggers, a traveler's cloak, and a transportation stone. He discovered that items could occasionally be found in a dead Lycan's stomach. Unfortunately, none of them seemed very useful. The dull daggers didn't have much attack power compared to his steel sword, and the traveler's cloak was less a clothing item and more of a miscellaneous item to sell to the shop. He ended up receiving more than 1,000 gold for selling everything, his current balance sitting at 1,060 gold, but I'm not particularly happy about it. No matter how much gold he saved, he had nowhere to spend it. The only thing left was the teleportation stone. Back at exit 3, when he'd made a fuss about leaving, he'd received a message that said he could leave once he found a teleportation stone. He could leave here if he wanted. He had 2 options now. The stairs leading down to the second underground floor were right in front of him, and he had the teleportation stone in his hand. Push forward or retreat. The old Jinwoo would have chosen to wait until his next opportunity without hesitation. That was how he'd survived so many raids despite his dismal abilities. People said it was a miracle, but it was actually due to smart decision-making. However, things were different now. He didn't want to go back. If he gave up now, he felt like he'd never be able to move forward. I've done a lifetime's worth of retreating. Shouldn't he try to clash with what was ahead for once in his life? He put the teleportation stone back in his pocket, his footsteps as he headed down to the second floor where as light as air. You have leveled up. You have leveled up. Unlike regular dungeons, monsters respawned in instance dungeons. Those on the first basement floor respawned while Jinwoo wiped out the ones on the second basement floor and vice versa. You have leveled up. You have leveled up. Jinwoo went back and forth between the first and second underground floors, defeating monsters until his level no longer increased. Since I don't know when I'll get this kind of opportunity again. At a certain point, he'd even memorized where and how monsters would come out and attack him. A monkey falls from the ceiling, he noted out loud, as he swiftly avoided the long claws of the monkey-like monster dropping from overhead and stabbed it in the chest. Cats on both the left and right side. He beheaded the 2 black leopards that attacked him from either side. You have defeated a razor-clawed Briga. You have defeated a black Shadow Razan. You have defeated a black Shadow Razan. That was the end of the second underground floor. Jinwoo had cleared the floor once more, but it had been a while since his stats had frozen at level 15. It seemed like this was as far as he could progress on these floors. At level 15, his stats had increased quite a bit. His agility was almost at 25. He'd clearly realized the difference between strength and agility once the latter had surpassed 20. Agility didn't make Jinwoo faster, but rather made it seem like his opponents were moving slower. It's like everything's in slow motion. When a monkey fell from the ceiling or a leopard leaped toward him, they looked slowed down. It felt like he was seeing everything move frame by frame. This made it easy to avoid monsters as well as successfully pull off attacks. As advertised, he'd become more agile. Speed was relative. As his agility stat went up, the gap between him and his opponent's skills widened to the point where, to them, it looked like he was moving at superhuman speeds. If my strength and agility keep increasing, that combo is going to be incredible. That was the conclusion he reached regarding the agility stat. So, Jinwoo turned his head. What should I do about that? He was looking at the stairs going down to the third underground floor. There was a reason he'd kept to the first and second basement floors, even though there was a clear path to the third. I've got chills. As his perception stat increased, he detected more of a foreboding aura coming from the third underground floor. Something powerful was down there. He didn't need to see it to know that. Jinwoo remembered the message he heard at the exit. You cannot leave the dungeon. You must either kill the boss or use a teleportation stone. It had read, the big boss. Jinwoo had kept going back and forth between the first and the second floors to level up as much as he could in preparation for taking out the boss. Even though he'd done that much preparation, he still felt nervous at the top of the stairs. Jinwoo lightly slapped his cheeks. Since I'm already here, I can't go back without at least seeing its face, can I? A healthy dose of stress was necessary to keep him on his toes. This was just the right amount. Jinwoo gripped his sword with both hands and slowly descended the stairs.